US President-elect Donald Trump has been sentenced to unconditional discharge for his conviction last year on 34 charges of business fraud related to hush money payment to Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign. Now, this case against Trump stems from his efforts to cover up hush money payments made to Daniels to keep quiet about their alleged affair before the 2016 elections, which were won by Donald Trump. The next report tells us how this hush money case against Trump evolved. United States President-elect Donald Trump faced sentencing on Friday after the Supreme Court denied his last-minute appeal on Thursday to halt proceedings in his hush money case. The court noted that the judge who presided over case has already said that he plans to impose a sentence of unconditional discharge, which does not carry any jail time, fine or probation. After the ruling, Donald Trump told journalists that he respects the court's opinion and termed the ruling an attack of a political opponent. The US President-elect said he will be appealing in the case and expressed confidence that justice will prevail.
I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said, but they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Hush money case hogged international attention, and it goes back to the March of 2023 when Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, a Democrat, charged Trump, a Republican, with 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up his former lawyer Michael Cohen's $130,000 payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. This was to buy her silence just before the 2016 elections, allegedly, when Trump defeated Democrat Hillary Clinton. Prosecutors argued, given tardy nature of the allegations, the case was an attempt to corrupt the 2016 elections. Trump's attorneys claim that the immunity from prosecution granted to a sitting president should be extended to a president-elect, while Manhattan District Attorney rejected these arguments, saying that Trump was a private citizen when he was charged, tried, and convicted. It was a hard-fought battle for President-elect Trump, who pleaded not guilty. The trial played out against the extraordinary backdrop of Trump's campaign to stake claim on the White House. Trump called accusations of fraud, defamation, and sexual abuse an effort by opponents to weaponize the justice system against him and harm his re-election campaign. Interestingly, the hush money case was a mixed bag politically. Contributions to Trump's campaign surged after he was indicted in March 2023. During the trial, polling showed his standing among Republicans slipping after the guilty verdict. But the case faded after President Joe Biden's debate performance led him to drop out with much reluctance, with Vice President Kamala Harris replacing him on the Democratic ticket. This was followed by a shocking assassination attempt on Donald Trump at Butler Rally in Pennsylvania. How unlikely is it for President-elect to get jail time due to his advanced age or a lack of criminal history? Well, that's the big question. All this amidst Trump's spectacular election victory and looming inauguration, making a sentence of jail or probation even less practical or a remote possibility. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India. DD India's Jessica Taneja joins us live from Newsroom. Jessica, you've been tracking the story very, very closely. So basically, what does this really mean? Unconditional discharge? Is this something which has come on expected lines? Bring us up to speed with the deliberations of the trial.
You're absolutely correct in pointing out that this has come on expected lines. Unconditional discharge is what had been anticipated by the New York State judge, who initially had said that the sentencing would go on even though it was appealed in the Supreme Court, which again then rejected the delay in sentencing of Donald Trump when it comes to the hush money case. Now, interesting to point out, Sakal, the fact that hush money case was among the weakest of the 4 criminal cases Donald Trump was faced with right up to the election campaign. And this is the only case perhaps that has reached the conclusion to the extent where there was a jury, it's reached to the point of sentencing. And the fact that most of the cases have in a way been taken care of because the defendant here is the future president of the United States of America, and that too one that will be at the helm of affairs in the next 10 days. So of course he does have legal recourse, which is now this sentencing would allow him, in fact, that he can appeal this as he had in the past. Even the Supreme Court, when it had heard Donald Trump's appeal quite recently, in fact on Thursday yesterday, had bypassed the course of appeals. But you're talking about the President of the United States, whose inauguration day is just in 10 days. So of course he has legal recourse available. And also important to know and remember the fact that last year the Supreme Court had in effect in its ruling granted him immunity from prosecution because he is the elected President of the United States of America.
Having said that, was the outcome of today's trial, I mean, we're not really jumping the gun here, Jessica, but a foregone conclusion? Because we do know it's been a historical trial with many firsts, many twists and turns. And as you rightly pointed out, President Trump happens to be the former president of United States of America as well as the future president.
That's correct. It is one of the many firsts that we're witnessing from the legal ambit, so to say, of the United States of America, and how the Constitution really constitutional values really take shape. And perhaps in all of this, it's important to understand that the reason we're talking about the sentencing, which initially was due to take place after Trump's inauguration day, after 20th of January, when he would become president, and this perhaps sentencing would still, of course, then would have been unconditional discharge. But right before his inauguration day, and the fact that the Supreme Court judges presiding over the ruling that rejected the delay in sentencing were also conservative judges that Trump had appointed. For example, Amy Coney Barrett. And looking at Judge John Roberts, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts is going to preside over the swearing-in ceremony of Donald Trump in another 10 days. So it is in fact a very, very interesting turn of events in the last few days we've seen from the New York State Court right up to the highest court of the country, which is the US Supreme Court.
Yeah, very interesting. Now the point that you've pointed out, rather, Jessica. So the selection of the jury and the impending inauguration and the repercussions of today's development as far as him taking over next, what do you see? What happens next?
Well, he will be the President of the United States of America, and he does have legal recourse. Department of Justice will technically be under him. So one could just put the pieces together quite easily to understand what is to come in the future. We've already seen the Supreme Court judges in their ruling back in July last year grant him that immunity from prosecution, even though there were certain legal precedents that were coming forth for discussion. But even though he remains, marred by those allegations still, but as soon as he becomes president, there is a different set of legal solutions that he will have to grant him that immunity from prosecution, which somehow must have created some turbulence at this point. But even the President of the United States, the incumbent President of the United States, Donald Trump, knows that this is something that can be sort of appealed in the future and will be taken care of.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, for giving us insights and analyzing this big breaking for us. Thank you for joining. Thank you.